And we're live. So is Samsung losing market share to Apple? Galaxy sales are solid, but competition is fierce. Blackberry is done updating the priv. Amazon finally brings back Chromecasts and Apple TVs. And TK Bay drops by the Gadget Lab to discuss the future of the internet after the FCC's net neutrality vote. Yeah. We've got a lot to talk about, so make sure you're charged and ready for episode 283 of the Pocketnow Weekly, recorded December 15th at around 11:30 a.m. This is the weekly podcast where we dissect and discuss those gadgets that make our lives mobile, smartphones, tablets, wearables. It's all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid, and you would just binge watch all of your favorite cheesy sci-fi shows over the holidays.
Exactly.
I know for me, it was usually like a Babylon 5 marathon.
Oh,
something
man.
like that.
Stargate SG-1.
Stargate.
Oh, man.
Stargate. So good. Okay.
Oh, man.
I'm kind of debating like what is it that I'm gonna do. I think the wife is probably gonna be down for next gen.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we'll probably do like, maybe seasons 5 through 7 just on in the background constantly.
Just keep it. Yeah, you gotta watch it, and you gotta watch the movie too, just to kind of reset, because just to see the differences.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, and I don't know. We gotta be selective. Maybe some Star Trek 4 action just to shake it up with some little comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta save those whales. So, as you may have noticed, Mr. TK Bay, a gadget aficionado, here to share his thoughts,
thank you.
all the top news stories of the week, and we've got a lot. Like I said, we've got a lot to talk about. So, I think we should just jump right in. And for those of you watching the live stream, you can jump into the conversation using the PN Weekly hashtag on Twitter. That's where we're going to be pulling comments and questions from. And then, if you're one of those audio listeners after the fact, you're not catching us live, definitely send in those questions and comments to I forgot her email address.
Is it not the PN Weekly at Pocketnow?
No, it's podcast at pocketnow.com. There we go. And we'll be wrapping up everyone's questions in our month mailbag at the end of the mailbag episode at the end of the month. You'll pardon, I usually have Jules here as a producer to help me out, so I have a lot of moving parts here.
Some words.
That's not how my shows go, because I'm Jules, the producer.
Yes.
But he's actually covering an event for us on the East Coast, so he couldn't join us this week, which I'm again, thank you for joining us so we can chat about this stuff.
Glad to be here. Definitely.
I want to jump right in on a story that, because we're going to be talking about Samsung, we're going to be talking about market share.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is impacting that on the global stage is the intense competition coming from companies like Huawei, Oppo, Xiaomi. And this is something that we've been getting little hints of for a while now. Yeah. But again, this isn't full confirmation. We don't have an official statement from any of the carriers or Huawei. Mm-hmm. But the continued notion that Huawei is going to be making a bigger play in North America, especially in the United States, and that we can see evidence of that negotiating coming from AT&T and from Verizon.
No, definitely. I mean, we've had the last couple of CESs, right? We've had events from them. They actually do come to the US and they release. They brought in the Mate 8 a couple of years ago, the Mate 9 last year.
It was the Mate 8 I started. They started getting up on my radar. Yeah,
some actual like the hardware and how it actually kind of gets tailored to the US. You got actually US hardware with a US charger. You get the technology. And last year we had one of the first devices that had Alexa built in, and they truly did that. They did deliver on that promise. A few months later, we got the update. We had Alexa built into their phone, and they're still to this day, I think, like 1 or 2 devices, maybe 2 or 3 devices, other than the HTC.
I think it's just HTC and Huawei.
Huawei that have it. So they've been in the market.
Oh, Motorola, if you count their dock.
Okay, so
if you buy a phone and then like a $200 speaker, then you can also have
get Alexa. And so the end result of what we're seeing now is obviously they're seeing is that there is interest in the market. And then if we don't want to forget also the fact that they're here also in another brand, which the Honor brand. We've had the Honor, I think the 5X, the 6X, and then we just heard about the 7X that just got released. Right. So, and I think those guys are already been introduced into the US, and then 7X is coming here.
This is, I think, the interesting play right now is we keep talking like, what can a brand do? How can you build up some market share?
Exactly.
You obviously can't right out of the gate out advertise Apple.
No.
Right? No. You can't out advertise Samsung.
Samsung's
not advertising budget probably eclipses a lot of other manufacturers' phone making budgets.
Exactly. Yeah. The R&D department here.
But what we've seen from Huawei is they've made a concerted effort to start playing in the unlocked space. The Mate 9 was a great addition to the North American lineup at the end of,
Very
the beginning of this year, actually.
we
It took a
didn't
while
see
for it to
we
get
didn't
here.
see it in the US till then. And a solid performer, a massive battery.
Oh, yeah.
One of the very few devices that have like a 4,000 milliamp battery. All day performance. You know, the screen's very nice, great audio on it. Still had a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. You still had those little, yeah, it's a feature now. It's not a requirement.
Yeah.
And I think that's really why. And then, of course, if you've had any chance to play with the Mate 10 or Mate 10 Pro, I had an opportunity when I was in the UK a few weeks ago. And
yeah, because I want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So looking forward to it. Makes perfect sense. And I think people will be very surprised because they don't know the brand. I think that's what it is.
Right.
The US, we haven't seen a single commercial or an ad for Huawei. But you land in the UK, the first thing you get to after customs is a massive billboard of a Huawei phone, the Mate 10 Pro. And I'm like, where am I? I mean, I know I wasn't in the US, but
I was totally shocked. Like cab drive, my first cab drive in Germany for IFA.
Yeah.
Drivers turn by turn nav on like a budget Huawei phone. You're like, I've just never seen one out in the wild like that. And now I'm starting to see, like, I was in an elevator with a dude and he pulls out a Mate 9. And like, dude, love that phone. He's like, I know. You know, he became that like that nod. You know, like you're in the know.
Like that thing you know what's up. Had for a while. Exactly. When you see the other OnePlus phone, like, yeah, we're there.
So you know, in addition to them making that play for the unlocked market, we saw with the, I have it here on the table, the 6X actually making it into Target, for example. So we know this is a company that's really trying to push those boundaries, but it seems to me that Huawei is backing off this multi-tiered strategy and focusing more of their resources on the carrier partnership, the carrier relationship. Oh, can you scoot the mic just a little closer to you? I know you were kind of propping your phone.
No, not a problem.
I mean, actually,
even better.
Right there.
You go.
But with that shift, because I feel like the Honor 9 became the phone in transition. We didn't see as cohesive a release strategy with that phone, making it into different markets. It really never made it to the United States, though. I think it is available in Canada.
It's available on Amazon, and I think it was,
but not in the same way that we saw with the Honor 8. Like the Honor 8, they made like a big play for it to be. This was a North American.
Yeah, exactly. They treated it properly.
San Francisco event.
They presented it. They provided everybody the information, and it was available on Amazon. Of course, right after that, people could buy it and use it. The Honor 9 never made it, although the Honor 9 is extremely well built of a device. I would have loved to see more of that lineup of devices because they're small, but they're perfect in the sense of screen to body ratio, camera performance. You had really good hardware there. But yeah, I think the 10, getting it into the carriers, obviously for any brand, for any OEM, is always going to be the best way because you get that mass distribution. It's kind of like getting Amazon to accept your Walmart.
Totally.
You get that, you know,
Costco.
Exactly. You get that market penetration. You get people to be able to see your device in the store in front of play.
Hands-on.
Exactly. Till you hold a Mate 10 or a Mate 9 or even an Honor 8, you don't know how good quality is because that Honor 8, that display, the back, if you've ever, we met there, and the glass, the 5D glass on the back, and then the blue shimmer, really nice phone. And I still have that device.
And I still like pulling it out on occasion too, because you get responses from people. Shiny blue, you know, it was the Pixel, it was last year's Pixel, and it was the Honor 8 were the two most publicly asked about phones that I would walk around with. Now, often it would be, hey, what's the case on your iPhone? But people were still curious. They would still ask about that. We've got a question here from Andrew Wallace using the PN Weekly hashtag. What does Huawei need to do in the US market in 2018 in order to successfully go head to head with Samsung and Apple? So a carrier launch strategy, I think, makes a lot of sense for people. If it follows the Mate 9 strategy, we're probably going to be seeing a Mate 10 announcement early first quarter 2018, something like that, hopefully to undercut some of the pre-buzz on LG G7s and Galaxy S9s.
And yeah, exactly. I think it's I think that would be a good step to start if they're able to work out their negotiations, as the rumors that we're hearing, you know, with either, you know, AT&T, Verizon. I think those would be really good markets. The fact that they have unlocked, that means they already kind of work on T-Mobile and some of the other carriers with the GSM. So you could technically just pick up your own device. I honestly think it's going to take time. I don't think it may not be 2018 where they become, oh my God, this is the best brand, but it's going to be where people start saying, oh, I know what Huawei is. I know what the Mate 10 is.
Yeah.
And I think if we could just get that name recognition and seen more in front of people,
that
2019
carries over.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that there could be a marketing strategy where they talk about how worldwide they're the number 3 and they're just not as recognized in the United States? Do you think that would resonate with North Americans?
It's hard to
like, it's tough, right? Like, I was trying to wrap my brain around that.
It's hard to say
because you make too big a play, they're gonna be like, well, I've never heard of you.
Exactly.
But if you don't bring it to the discussion, then you're missing out on an opportunity to say, like, hey, we're not just some new startup.
Exactly.
We're an established mega brand worldwide.
Years of experience, years of performance of devices, and many lineup. And I think it may be a good thing to say, but I don't think it's going to be a selling point, especially not in the US.
We're technical.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And we always want the best, and we always think that we are, basically
discerning consumers,
and
right?
That technology starts here always, and it's not always that way. I mean, there's a lot more than just Apple and Samsung, which is what we think is the top number one. Huawei makes amazing hardware, and swear to God, I mean, the Mate 9 Porsche edition. So that was
I never got to play with that one.
So they had that on the show floor at CES.
Yeah.
And that was the closest resemblance that we got at that whole curved glass on the side.
Oh, right.
And it really had that really nice design. Never saw it in the US, never made it into the US market, but they never even talked about it. But the Porsche design was really a very nicely designed phone that kind of even came ahead of the S8 and the S8 Plus.
Totally.
So they have the hardware. You just need to see it. And I think this is the right move. Is it going to be sold on, we're number 3 in the world? I think what we need to see is more value for the dollar and a performance. And as time goes on and people use their devices, especially with the Honor brand, because that's doing also a much better penetration in the market here.
Well, yeah, let's shift gears on that, because that as a 2-pronged strategy, I worry that there could be a little confusion with Huawei and Honor in North America as you're kind of launching both. The Honor is a little bit more established. You can find them in Target, but Huawei only about a year behind in making the same kind of plays with unlocked retailers. But I don't think they have an expectation that consumers are going to understand that they're the same umbrella corporation. But that's still, you're sort of dividing your resources in trying to market products here. But you got to spend some time, we've got it here on the table, the Honor 7X. I had my 6X next to it just so we can compare. Immediately when you popped the case off of it, it does have that kind of HTC meets Apple curved antenna banding.
Exactly. And
but I really liked that they're finally getting rid of these panels.
Exactly.
They got rid of the panels on the Mate 9 for the Mate 10, and now Honor is finally following suit.
And we have the 18:9 aspect ratio. I mean, we still have 1080p plus, but the tech for the price, I mean, this is $199.
Yeah.
You cannot beat it. That's where Honor is really succeeding. It's getting you really good hardware at a very affordable price. You can pick it up for $200 and not have to worry about it. SD card support, 3.5mm headphone jack, a lot of good things. Some things we still need to see improved. I mean, it's almost 15 days to 2018, right? Micro USB. But that's just me.
That's a little cranky, yeah.
Yeah, but that's me.
But they seem to be making a really smart play with the Honor brand opposite, say, like a Moto G5.
Definitely.
Where I feel like Motorola got a little confusing with their strategy. There's the G5, the G5 Plus, the G5S.
Too many G5s. Exactly.
Too many G5s. And G5s that started encroaching on like Moto Z plays.
Exactly.
When you're talking similar chipsets and battery capacities
and it's just, I think the marketing strategy at that point is just almost like, we just need to create so many variants so people can find what they want. And reality is you just need to find the right variant. Just give
balance.
Give us that balance. Give us a good, decent sized battery, good display, and a good camera. People will buy that at $250 or $200 because the price point wasn't even that much difference, right? They were going from like $150 to $200
increments.
Yeah, it was small step increments, and I think Motorola are just trying to bring something back of the old days.
Yeah.
The reality is we just have too many devices at this point.
Yeah.
And I think the Z Force, that line is very, very well established. It's very good. Top-notch hardware, slim design, latest specs, great cameras.
Yeah.
And then the Moto mods and all of that stuff. So those are really nice. I like the gaming mod on the Moto Z Force. But it's one of those things that you got to realize, Huawei needs to really just work on providing the great hardware at the great price. I think the way their approach is going into it, I feel like it's almost like similar to the way Apple does it. Now, Apple has the high-end side, and then they also have the C side, the lower-end side. The
SE, yeah.
And they realize that people want both, right? They want that small form factor, the nostalgia factors right there.
The best built iPhone ever.
Exactly.
From the 5 and 5S.
Metal band all around. You can throw that thing in the land and straight into your wallet if you want to do that.
It's perfect. It's perfect one thumb navigation.
Perfect. And then, but they realize that people still need that, so they didn't, take that away, and they provide you, of course, with new designs and new things. Yeah. They just approach it differently. They did Honor take care of all the budget, grade online retail, and budget phones, and they're doing well. And I think as time goes on, then they can draw that line. Say, look,
gotcha.
You love our brand, you love our budget side, but if you ever want that little extra, Huawei's right there,
and we can
exactly
step you up.
And with the View 10, if you look at the View 10, some of the specs from the View 10 are very close to the Mate 10.
Yeah.
They took the Kirin 970s in there. That's
huge.
That's their best chipset to date.
Yeah.
So we're talking best chipset, camera setup, really, really nice. You're getting some of the best stuff out of Huawei into their Honor devices at a great budget price. That's why I like them. And they're doing really good. Like I said, it just takes time, and we're seeing some of the stuff.
So you've spent about a week with it. What is the chipset that they're using in the 7X?
It's the 659.
659.
So it's a small bump from last year. We had the 650 that's running on the 6X.
Yeah.
So 659. In the European model, we had the 464, and then the US model is 332 as far as the internal storage and
RAM and RAM storage.
So yeah, there's always going to be slight variation between the US and the European
which
model.
There shouldn't be.
But
I'm sorry.
I can understand. I can relate to the price point though, because when we look at the price difference between the two, the European model runs closer to $300, where the US model is $199.
Yeah.
And again, super premium feel. The display is very, very nice. It's 1080p plus. You're not going to lose anything. 18:9 aspect ratio, great for media consumption. And I've actually gotten a couple of updates on it since I've had it. So It's really, really nice. I like the fact that it works very well. And I think the US market would love the display because, again, they finally matched what you were having to pay, so much more money to get.
Totally.
Because even with OnePlus,
it's like a $500 phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, less than half that price. Did they, just because I'm going to pick your brain real quick, because I know sort of like in Qualcomm land, if we're talking like 625 or Snapdragon 630, that started to enable things like 4K video recording. Has Huawei managed to make that transition for the 7X?
Unfortunately, no.
No. So, okay.
No 4K, and the front facing camera doesn't do 1080p. So you get,
that is a compromise there.
There is a compromise. Yeah. You could definitely see how the line goes from where they went and what they took out.
Right.
But again, it keeps it within a certain, price point. You realize you're not buying something that's going to do 4K, but you're going to be getting that really good quality picture out of it. Nice. You're going to get, the dual sensors in the back. That their bokeh effect is, it's good. It's not bad. I'm going to say it's. You have to get the right lighting, and as long as you get your subject centered correctly, you'll be able to get a good picture.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears. We've got a couple other news stories coming in, and one of the biggies that I think, just from sort of a media and entertainment standpoint, is Amazon. So Amazon is finally bringing back Chromecast and Apple TV, so you can buy those. Apparently, it's not that confusing for consumers if they have multiple options for buying streaming devices. Because I thought it was strange that like they would sell Rokus.
Yeah.
And Fire TVs and Fire Sticks, but it was too confusing to have Chromecasts
and Apple
TV. So, but apparently, we're smart enough now to figure that out. And Amazon,
we needed some time. We needed some separation.
It's just like don't want to rush. Don't want to rush. And it maybe has something to do with the fact that Google pulled the plug on YouTube for Amazon devices.
So they're supposed to be, according to some sources at least, they're supposed to be working some details to see if they can keep it or bring it back. Right?
Yeah, they had a stay of execution on a couple devices.
Yeah, that was especially one of their main ones, right? The show.
Yeah.
You need.
YouTube is kind of a
of the
big
videos
deal.
that came on that was from YouTube. I mean, Amazon Video does not have that library access on their selection of all the content that people would ask of, Alexa, or sorry, didn't mean to say Alexa. Yeah. I'm not going to call the Amazon Assistant anything. I've been practicing not to call out the keywords.
Hey, Alexa, how much is hemorrhoid cream? Sorry, that's terrible.
I know.
I don't have any Alexas, and my Google Home Mini isn't even plugged in right now. So
I think it's a great idea. I think it's amazing that. Well, I think it's great that we finally have the ability to be able to purchase those. And we have a great lineup, and Amazon makes great Fire. TVs.
It's nothing against the individual ecosystems. It just kind of feels like this is an Alien versus Predator. Choice, whoever wins, we lose. It's like two major forces, economic forces, like Amazon sort of dominating retail, Google dominating sort of trafficking and personal information, clashing with us as the poker chips on the table, and it feels a little unseemly. I'm always going to be happy when we have better interoperability and better service penetration between these different ecosystems. I don't like when, you know, like the early days of having a box under your TV and like, well, the PlayStation 3 can do Netflix, but the Xbox can't. And you're like, well, no, it's a computer. Yeah, it's a computer. I should be able to choose what goes on there. And so for the longest time, I just ran a Windows XP computer under my TV.
Mini PCs, yeah.
It wasn't even mini.
Oh man,
it was just it was an old AMD AMD ATX build, and you're like, I don't need this motherboard anymore, and it's still got a chip in there. I can put 16 gig of RAM in a hard drive and just have it run up there and collect
Bluetooth
dust.
Keyboard and mouse and hook it up to the TV.
Terrible. But it worked. It worked. So now it's like, I feel like we still haven't quite crested. We still haven't quite learned from those mistakes of early like exclusive features or exclusive lockdown resources for media and entertainment.
Early exclusivity for a certain amount of months before people can see it somewhere else. Yeah, we remember the Apple, the AT&T Apple relationship for so many years.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want these companies to do better, in part because I feel like the more we kind of let a Google or an Amazon dictate what, because this also kind of ties into like the net neutrality stuff a little bit. But what I'm worried about from those companies' perspectives, the Amazon and the Google perspective, is more FTC involvement, not FCC involvement. Exactly. But this becomes like, if you can arbitrarily decide one service gets your content and another service doesn't, and you can use that as leverage for favorable retail space on an organization like Amazon, that starts to crest into antitrust territory. And that's not where I want to see a Google go, because then the government needs to get involved. No, exactly. It's the same thing. Like, I don't want the government involved in gaming, but if they're going to teach my kids about gambling mechanics in a Star Wars game and Disney isn't going to do anything about it, then the government needs to get involved. I would rather the video game industry police itself. I would rather Google and Amazon negotiate behind the scenes, not use us as bargaining or as leverage.
Well, this is similar to how cable companies now have to deal with a lot of like, NBC or CBS when they're deciding to boycott certain channel because negotiations didn't go, and then they'll start flooding TV with. You'll start getting ads from your carrier. Right. If you want to be able to see this, you need to do this, and so on. So it's
was it the Comcast was like intercepting traffic and feeding people ads?
Exactly. It was just basically saying,
oh, was it? You're right. It wasn't even that they were feeding people ads. They were saying you need to upgrade your modem, and then like nothing was wrong. That's right. It's that story got buried. That's how crazy news has been. Yeah. No, that a story like that got buried.
There's a lot of things going on with. You just have to realize. You're right. They should have taken care of it. I think it's great that we have them back on the market itself on Amazon. And the fact of the matter is, if people want an Amazon Fire Stick, they're not going to go and pick up a Chromecast. They're not going to go pick up an Apple TV, because it does different things than what those other things do. And that's why you buy. You buy for the integration with Amazon. And people that want Chromecast are not going to look at Amazon, and they're not going to look at an Apple TV.
And you know what's frustrating too is I feel there are a number of us out there, and we all, and if you're watching this, if you're interested in this kind of technology, you probably have a family mixed ecosystem of different operating systems iOS and Android and everything else too. We can make an impassioned argument to say, hey, Amazon, I'm Amazon Prime. I would like to be able to consume Amazon content. I'm paying for that service, but you withholding it from Chromecast is my preferred option for connecting my TV to my phone means I'm going to use your service less. And if Prime becomes less of a good deal for me, then I will stop using Prime. If someone has an Apple TV, you can use their Apple TV to still fulfill your service.
You can
so
still
withholding it as some kind of leverage that we're all going to have like 5 different dongles sticking out of our TV for different Wi-Fi connections is a foolish business notion. They're trying to leverage their retail presence in the living room, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. No. I would say get Amazon Video, Amazon Prime, Amazon Music on everything that you can.
And we started seeing it this year too with what's it called, with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA came out with the Shield TV. They had Amazon Video built into it. So that's that's one thing that you realize.
But again, they struck that out as like a proprietary partnership for one piece of, and you're like, yeah, don't do that. Don't make me have to go and figure out how to splice an APK like install it and sideload it onto something else.
No, I think you're right. I think it's supply and demand, and at the end of the day, Amazon needs to realize this is a source of revenue. If they're not looking at it correctly, you're basically pushing people out by telling them, look, I don't want to support your devices. But at the end of the day, the market will get what the market wants. So if you don't give it to them, they'll figure out a way to get it to work,
or they'll just give up.
Yeah, no, or
we just started streaming. What is it? The Marvelous Miss Maisel. It's a show about like 1950s stand-up comedians. It's on Amazon. It's from Amazon Studios. It's a really charming show, but my wife wasn't happy figuring out how to jump through hoops to get it on a TV screen. Even though we have a Vizio smart connected TV, it still wasn't. I mean, she gets Chromecast, she gets Apple TV. We don't have an Apple TV, but we have enough Apple family. Like she goes, oh, you just go boop boop, and it's playing. Oh, Chromecast, I hit the little square thing in the corner, and it's playing. All right, Amazon, how do I log in? Like it was such a pain.
You have to go look for it and then search and use. If you don't have the right remote, you can't talk to it the right way. You have to use the keyboard.
So frustrating.
There's a lot of things, and then but if you notice, actually, if nothing else, Amazon did kind of copy Chromecast with their latest Fire TV. I mean, that was a straight copy. You just kept the square over a circle kind of thing, but
Oh, you see, it's totally different because the icon's a circle.
Yeah,
so
it's a circle to a square, not the same. But they're getting into that market, and I think that's probably also why they're kind of considering, look, we can sell their products, we can keep it. And I think Chromecast also hasn't been updated for about a year or so. So we're probably due to see something new, and hopefully there'll be some new stuff.
We can move the needle on that.
Yeah.
Two quick stories that I just kind of want to touch on. We don't have to spend a lot of time on them. Vivo actually made a little news recently.
Really?
That we posted this on Pocketnow, pocketnow.com, and it seems like they will actually be the first manufacturer to properly integrate the fingerprint sensor under the display. Man. The display glass. And this is something that I've been kind of running into some frustration, like iPhone 10. Have you spent time with an iPhone 10? I just kind of played with one.
I had it for about a month. It's a nice device. I'm going to say it's a nice device.
So 2017 represented Juan's cranky spectrum of change for change sake, where we get the Galaxy S8 and there's that pulse vibration motor for the home button, but we didn't have the fingerprint sensor, so it moved it off center to the back. Same thing with the Note. Kind of bugs me still, just because I want that symmetrical design. Then Apple coming up with, I feel, an awkward set of gestures to replace functionality that really wasn't broken.
Exactly.
Especially for how good their haptic feedback is, that their vibration motor is. They already were training people about force pressing into screens.
Force touch, and it's still there. You can still do force touch, which is the weird part about it. So they didn't take that part away.
No.
But they took the fingerprint sensor away. So it's like...
And the home button, which was already a virtual button anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't really a button. You haven't been able to click a button on an iPhone since the 6, I think. The 6 and the 6 Plus was the last ones that had probably like a full functioning button. And the 7 went with that fingerprint. It's basically just a touch... It's a sensor. It's a sensor
that vibrates
with a motor
under.
Behind it. Yeah. It's a great phone. It has a lot of good things going for it. The form factor was a little bit too small for me. I appreciated the 5.8-inch display, but I didn't like the fact that it was the size of an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 8 for that matter. I like the bigger devices, bigger phones, everything I carry. I like I want to have more real estate. Right. And I think probably next year we'll see something a little bit bigger. I think overall the iPhone 10, for what you get from the difference between it and the 8 Plus, I think the
8 Plus is the better buy.
I think honestly, at the end of the day, you get the same performance. You get the great camera in the back. You're not going to lose on the bokeh effect. And we don't have emojis, but I think that's a time thing. We'll see that down the road. It's really software. There's nothing special about it. So there really is no reason for it to stay on the 10. I think other than again, exclusive for a certain amount of time.
Totally.
It's a great phone, great cameras. The portrait mode gets better as time goes on. The gestures, it just doesn't feel right. But after a couple of weeks, you get used to it. Like moving up, swiping.
I did like a whole series of videos how I thought every company screwed up on my personal channel.
Yeah.
I did the screwed up series.
Yeah, exactly.
And people were like, "Oh, I totally get used to it." It's $1,000 phone.
Yeah.
I should not have to get used to change for change sake. At that price, this should be a device that adapts to how I want to use it.
The natural evolution.
And Apple, as a company, has built so much of their rep on, I mean, you use the word intuitive. that familiarity.
Yeah.
We've never changed how you operate an iPhone just for the sake of changing something. Exactly. And there was no reason, especially picking up a Galaxy, there was no reason why we couldn't have emulated the home button experience for iPhone users in a similar way. But this kind of full circle in a really roundabout way, because I ramble, getting us back to Vivo. And again, being one of the first companies to accomplish the familiarity of that front home button fingerprint sensor.
Because we heard also that iPhone was trying to do it as well. Many rumors about it trying to be part of the 10, but that never made it there. But that'll be interesting.
And I love I forget who it was. Oh crud! It was one of the top Apple executives coming. I was like, oh no, we were never working. We always meant to just go straight to Face ID because we're Apple and we don't make mistakes.
Face ID, that's a discussion for a different day.
Yeah, that's a whole separate podcast. But so Vivo, again, not the top, not the most recognized reputation in the United States, but a very competitive force internationally, especially in Asian markets. Do you think that these features will move the needle? Like, do you think consumers are going to appreciate, I now have more screen on the front face and I still have my normal fingerprint sensor gesture? Or do you think it's, well, my favorite brand moved it to the back, so obviously that's the preferred way to do things now? Do you think the fanboyism is going to win? Or do you think that the acknowledgement of that muscle memory is going to help sell more phones?
It's going to be an interesting. So I think the best thing the way to look at it is the way it gets implemented. If Vivo implements it in the right way and does the navigation around it correctly. Because the big problem about this is it's behind the display where your finger generally will rest. So if you have it there, but you don't put a home button behind it, meaning it's just sitting there behind the
fingerprint sensor,
and it's activating certain things. So that's going to be kind of like the UI. And I think the weird part about it is, and I hate to bring back Apple into the discussion, Apple doesn't necessarily bring the new tech into the market, but they make it right. It's the best way to explain it is,
I think they polish the edges.
They polish the edges enough on it so that it makes it into a functional thing. So Face ID, even though it has some concerns, the implementation of it is very nice. And I think Vivo being Gen 1, it should be really looked at as Gen 1. Expect some growing pains, expect some concerns out of the door, but they're going to be the ones to bring it to market. So you need to appreciate that. So I think there's going to be the fanboyism where we go in and jump in, we take a look at it, and we may be super critical about it. But at the end of the day, we're going to appreciate that they started it, and they're going, especially with some of the stuff that we're seeing also with the S9. We're not seeing the fingerprint under the glass. We're seeing it in the back in a much maybe pleasant placement. So I would appreciate it. I would love to try it out, check it out, and see how it's done, and then dream of how it can go upwards from there. That's the best way to look.
And then also just kind of interesting that this is a Chinese manufacturer leading the way on one of these. I mean, normally when we're talking about them here in the United States, we have a perspective on companies like OnePlus. They're very reactive companies after a new technology's been out. OnePlus 5 to the 5T.
For example.
We don't see them so ahead of the curve or on the pulse because they're making their market in a completely different way, which is about like cost savings. You can't do that on the bleeding edge.
Exactly. And really good hardware. No, definitely.
So seeing a Vivo branded phone lead with a feature like this, I think is just kind of an interesting commentary on what I think the changing shape of the international market is going to look like over the next couple years. But let's save that for when we're talking about Samsung. One other just quick story before we hit that Samsung block. It took me a couple minutes to even pull it out of the crazy gadget bookcase over here on the side. Blackberry Priv. Dead to us.
I know.
Dead.
Sad.
End of life. No more updates. Gone.
It's
I'm pulling the phone out. It was like it's always nice revisiting this build.
It's an amazing build. I love the device. I love the slider. The mechanism is built in perfectly. The display to body ratio, you had that perfect display size right in front of you. You slide it up, you get the keyboard. You don't want it, you use the on-screen keyboard. You didn't even have to worry about it. And it kept it, reasonably
kept it clean.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't have to get that bulky extra attachment case like Samsung sometimes will sell. Sometimes they generate a version of it every year. Most of us don't see it, but there's the keyboard case that gets released. I really hope that the development community does actually take this on and start helping give it some life. Although with the fact that BlackBerry is so kind of locked in the way they do things, it's sad to see.
I think some of the security stuff on there would probably get in the way.
That's the first thing.
Unless you were to just completely gut it. and
exactly.
lose
So
a lot
skip
of what
that.
made it
Don't worry about
interesting.
BlackBerry. You know, you just want to get next update on this, and you can move forward. There is always going to be a risk, obviously, but yeah,
Right.
security stuff. Whenever you safety net, you break safety net. There's not much you could do. They're relying on safety net. They do set it up correctly, but if you want the hardware, you want the new software. There's no reason why not. The keyboard is a physical keyboard. It's not software. So you're getting that. And
really,
it stays
the big problem with that phone was it had nothing to do with BlackBerry. It was they entered into the Android market during the Qualcomm 810, 808 era.
And the heat, there was the heat.
Oh man, that phone ran hot. That phone, see, this is like one of the few. This phone was scary if you had it on and plugged in and it started updating your apps.
Oh man, yeah, especially
the battery would crank and it would still lose charge.
Oh yeah, it didn't have enough because you had so many things drawing power and the charge wasn't fast enough.
Oh
and
man,
of course,
scary.
one of the last ones to have
micro USB.
Sorry, this is going to be the theme of this story. No,
micro USB. I get cranky when I have to charge like Bluetooth headphones now. It's like, where the heck is that cable?
Where is that micro USB
thing with something else? Oh, come on.
Yeah, I got to get myself a good pair.
But that's also why I've just been happy to see the
password.
Yeah. The resurgence of TCL manufacturing with the Key 1. I can't wait to see what Key 2 brings. I saw my first Key 1 out in the wild.
Oh wow, okay.
It was another sort of just like I'm at my daughter's pediatrician's office, and some dude just pulls it out, starts tapping away. He's like, "How great is that keyboard?" He's like, "Man, I know." And it was just like the Mate 9 experience. Just like, bro.
We know that club. No, I'm sad to see that, but hopefully we'll see some new things. And I'm hoping they do generate a new design, or at least bring something familiar to this.
Yeah.
Or similar to it, because it's very nice. It's very nice. It feels great in the hand. And literally, if it had better internals, maybe a little bit better as far as the power consumption and as well, charging, could do a lot better.
I would hope so. And especially just for it's one of those nostalgic companies. I don't understand a world where BlackBerry doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I want to see them just continue.
No, exactly.
And exciting when they do something well. Like, our expectations are so low. And then a phone like the Key 1 comes out and people will I was on set for Newegg Now yesterday and I was talking about it. And they're like, well, yeah, but I mean, like keyboards. I'm like, you don't know until you use it.
We've had that much time since keyboards went away.
But you go back to something. It's so awkward for the first day, and then without even thinking about it,
without looking, you start typing.
You pull it out of a pocket and you hold down one button, and it automatically starts calling or automatically launches an app, and it's there waiting for you before you're even looking at the screen. And you're like, and then I'm looking at like $1,000 iPhone. It's like I have to hold it up to my face. And then it unlocks, and then I can use it.
Apple
and
Pay
that seems backwards.
Trying to use Apple Pay with Face Unlock. Yeah, no, you have to get. And then it actually had. It was about like 80, maybe 90% success rate with the camera as far as being able to do Face ID. But yeah, trying to get in when you're in the store, you just do this to kind of look at it, make sure it unlocks. Then you double press, and it just looks odd.
It's
Gen 1.
It's change.
It's changed.
So
people want to change.
That's great.
Yeah, but it's a change for change's sake.
So we're gonna take a quick break here just to hit our sponsor block. If I can pull this up, I have way too much. I'm actually running this from my laptop, and it seems to be doing okay now. But it's a little overworked moment, so I'm going to go to the phone screen for this. But this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly is brought to you by the #1 New York Times bestselling author James Rollins' the thrilling new novel, The Demon Crown. Often compared to Clive Cussler and Michael Crichton, Rollins combines real science and history with cutting-edge military action. Off the coast of Brazil, a team of scientists discovers a horror like no other. I have problems with that word, horror. They didn't discover a... Never mind. An island where all life has been eradicated, consumed, and possessed by a species beyond imagination. To save mankind's future, the members of Sigma Force must make a devil's bargain and join forces with their most hated enemy. This sounds so awesome. Even if it means sacrificing one of their own. It's a great place to join in on the wildly successful Sigma Force series. Rollins' latest Sigma Force novel is one of the best of the series, says Booklist, and Publishers Weekly calls it bone-chilling. And we might be using this as a future episode for my book podcast, the Geek Book Club. I think we're going to be adding this to our calendar. So get started with videos, audio, and more. JamesRollins.com. Definitely check out the website if you're interested in the Sigma 4 series. He's got a lot of other things on there that kind of help supplement the stories themselves. Some really cool audio files, interviews, stuff like that. You definitely want to check it out. Once again, JamesRollins.com, and check out the Demon Crown. And we thank them for supporting the Pocketnow Weekly. Okay. So you wanna talk about some Samsung?
I do want to talk some Samsung, but I do want to take a real quick circle back.
Oh, yeah.
I made a small mistake, and we do have 4K.
We got a clarification.
We do have 4K on the 7X.
Give me the 4Ks. Grab your hands.
So switching back to the back camera, you gotta, and then go into the settings. So it does have 4K 4:3 aspect ratio. You have to learn that one.
Where's the video and swipe and seeing TK? I mean, come on, man. What are you doing?
I know. I'm slipping, man.
I really didn't.
You had me wonder. So let me double check. I have the phone sitting right there. But this is the European model, so that's
I just want to see on the bokeh mode. We're gonna fire this. This is like literally the worst audio for the people listening to the podcast, is watching two people
trying to take a picture,
use the camera. Listen to two people using the camera. Actually, the bokeh on this did really well.
Like I said, what I found that as long as you get your subject centered correctly and you have enough of a contrast between the foreground and the background, it does pretty well. So
here's like one of the problems is behind you right now is an open window with a whole bunch of trees and leaves and light.
Yeah.
It didn't mess up the cutting.
Yeah.
It cut you out well. It actually did that. And then look at the microphone in the foreground. It didn't blend that into you.
No.
That's surprisingly good. I mean, a $200 phone, I wouldn't have expected I keep calling them stitching errors, no cutout errors. And where even my Pixel had a few issues with busy backgrounds like that.
I would just look at a little bit around the top part. There's a little bit of a
it's a little stair-stepped.
Yep, exactly.
But again,
for when you're trying to post as social media for Instagram,
$200.
Exactly.
I'm pretty impressed. But yes, let's jump into Samsung right now. So I want to kick this off first. Just again, another short little news blip. Do you need another smart speaker in your home? Yes, you do. Because Bixby is coming to a smart speaker, rumored to cost around $200. We'll probably be getting more news on this around CES.
That's not bad. That's actually pretty decent.
But again, I question, is this really the killer app? Because I think what Bixby has done well on Galaxy phones has very little to do with like the voice actions that I rely on for Google Now.
Yeah, no, different. You get different experience.
But the Bixby sort of macro is actually pretty compelling. That has actually become a use that I tap into and that I like is automatically controlling and switching settings and stuff.
It's built in exactly. It does exactly what Google hasn't been able to reach. And
so I wonder, what does a speaker bring to the table that, an Echo or a Google Home isn't already trying to bridge that gap between IoT manufacturers, smart home manufacturers, and tying all these things together? Is that Samsung's in? Is it that it's so raw right now for smart home that they can maybe do their smart things?
Smart things is their built-in hub, and which works really well with Google Home and even with Alexa systems. I think that's probably what they're trying to tie into.
Gotcha.
It's pretty much just a straight. We haven't been able to basically give our users access to the smart things outside of you install an app on your phone or you integrate it with your Google Home. They want to have that ability and say, look, we can control your entire home with that one hub.
Yeah.
They just partnered up with NVIDIA to be able to bring that over, even just to bring the smart things hub to the NVIDIA Shield. So you can you don't have to even buy the entire hub. You just buy a dongle, you plug it into the back of the Shield. It uses the internals for power, and you run automation, turning on lights, setting timers, and all of those things. And I think that's going to be their approach. Is it going to do more than what Google Home or Alexa can do right now? I don't think so. I don't think there's much for them to do because their ecosystem isn't set up that way.
No, unless
you can set up macros on the fly.
And then I think we've got an interesting
because right now
solution.
We couldn't do that. That's one thing that we don't have. Like you can tell your speaker to say, hey, I want light XYZ to turn on every day at 7 p.m. and turn off at every next day at 6 a.m. If you could do that, or the opposite, obviously, if you're doing it, then that'll be their little bit of heads up. And I think that's what they need to focus. If they have automation ahead of what the other guys are doing, because right now Google Home can take 2 commands at the same time.
Gotcha.
And that's, you know, Amazon can't do anything like that. And just the ability, when I go into the office and I start my shoots in the morning, I go in and I say, turn on those lights and turn off these lights. And I have the configuration set that these are the main lights, and then turn on my desk lights and my camera and all of that stuff. I don't have to touch anything as I'm setting up things and I'm putting things on the table and getting things done. I think that's what going to be their big.
Now, do you think Bixby might be a part of a grander ecosystem strategy when we look at all of the other, like, Samsung appliances? True. You know, again, tapping into washer and dryers.
Or the refrigerator, right?
Well, and didn't they introduce an AI component into one of their washing machines? I really want to believe that was it, like IFA. They had like,
so I don't think they did it at CES. I think LG did something like that last year at CES when they were trying to bring in their little robot, and they're trying to bring they talked more about their home devices. But I think, well, yeah, but keep in mind also they have their refrigerators. They have that built-in tablet with a refrigerator. Integrate Bixby there.
But it wasn't easy. But it wasn't Bixby. I'm spacing on this bad, and I probably should have looked it up for our show notes. But I really believe, I think it was something like
an AI system,
a special AI system just for their washing machines. Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Your washing machine will know what to do.
Washing machine knows all about your dirty drawers.
Exactly.
So you gotta look out.
It's all your dirty laundry.
Literally, but like in a creepy way.
It is.
So Samsung,
and it's connected to the cloud.
Two of the bigger stories, Samsung this year, I think we can kind of combine these in a way too. Galaxy S9 renders. Yes. Not a lot of surprises.
No, it's going to be a small upgrade.
S8.
It's going to be
dual cameras. The one thing I was happy to see in the renders, headphone jack. There were those rumors that maybe Samsung was thinking about walking away.
I think they've had a good recipe for hardware. The dual lens was a natural thing. We see it every year, right? Whenever the Note that comes in, that small spec bump that you get in the Note comes into the next version of the S, and the S kind of brings in the next CPU, new RAM configuration, and then the Note will always kind of push the envelope a little bit more. I think the fingerprint sensor, if the renders are true, would be nice.
Yes,
it would be very nice. Finally, something that makes perfect sense, because to this day, I've mastered it on the right hand, which is weird. But if, as you guys know, we use our devices in many different positions. A lot of times I actually use my device with my left hand. Actually, I got better at it typing even. I always confuse where the fingerprint sensor is, and I always go for the lens, because my mind always thinks the lens.
You have to reach where
the finger is, so
and
it tells the same message, tells the left hand to do what the right hand is. So learning and relearning and trying to reconfigure, it's
dude, you're making too big a deal out of it. You can always just totally get used to it.
I like to call that as the ID10T error. I don't know if you guys know what that one. Google that, ID10T.
Yeah, definitely.
But I am the ID10. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, we're not saying you. I mean, I'm saying if you're persuaded to leave angry comments on YouTube videos about people who don't like the fingerprint sensor location, that might be a you problem.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really happy to see that vertical stripe in general. So moving the cameras vertically and having the fingerprint sensor live underneath makes perfect sense for a phone that's lean, long, tall,
water resistant. We'll have really good internals and curved display. I'm sure they're not going to lose that.
Oh, definitely not. But I just mean, like, it's an awkward aesthetic. I look at the Note and I see that horizontal chunk for the camera sensor, camera module on a phone that's long, lean, and tall. And so seeing them switch that, if they go vertically like that, like Huawei's gone with their cameras again. So I got a lot of people hating on the fact that I called the Mate 10 Pro the nicest designed phone of 2017. And it's all because of symmetry. So even the autofocus sensor and the flash bridging the cameras in identical oval cutouts with the vertical mounting of the camera sensors directly above the fingerprint. I mean, like, every fraction of a millimeter of that phone is on point. And while I'm not saying Galaxy devices look like garbage. I'm just saying there is this asymmetry happening, and that knocks it out of. We're talking about $900 phones.
We're already talking expensive.
We're at the most critical end of the market. If some tiny little detail is even just a little bit off,
it will be a determining factor. Why
it's a bigger deal than if you have like
both of those in front of you.
$100 burner phone.
No. We're not. No, you're not comparing it. And if the rumors are and they're able to work it out, you could potentially have that comparison in early 2018 or
definitely
before the the Note 9 or whatever the next iteration of the Note comes in. You could potentially have the ability of looking at both devices and say which one you think looks better. not knocking on Samsung design. They make beautiful phones, great design.
But I am knocking the fingerprint sensor. So
yeah,
yes.
I like. No, I'm a big fan. When I was at the UK for the Honor event, I streamed for 45 minutes. Did a live stream using my Note 8. Solid device, perfect audio quality, picture quality, back-facing camera, front-facing camera, everything switched, and it was just a champ. That's why I like them. But you know, at the end of the day, when you have so many, selection, all running the 835 or comparable processors, you know, when you jump over to the Kirin side, so you have to kind of figure out whatever you feel like looks better in your hand.
Totally. But I think we can definitely point to the fingerprint sensor being the absolute objective cause of Samsung's terrible market slip. It's really the only explanation is they mess up the fingerprint sensor and people aren't buying their phones, and I think that's crash and burn. And you know, it's probably worse than what happened to the Note 7 last year. And
I'm just kidding.
We're obviously being facetious
here. Yeah,
slash S. I don't know like what else to say to make sure that you guys know we're being sarcastic. No, it's this is a story, and we were talking about this a little before the podcast got started. The frustration of the clickbaity headline. We're even at Pocketnow, we played the same game where it's like Samsung's market share is totally slipping against Apple and Chinese manufacturers. When we actually look at the sales data, though, Samsung sales have been remarkably strong considering what happened to them at the end of 2016.
Because you got to keep in mind, you need to look at Samsung as a whole, not necessarily just Samsung, the phone manufacturer.
Yeah.
Because that's not. So when we think of Samsung, to us, we think Note and Galaxy S8. But the fact is, their hardware. And I was trying to make mine very quiet.
I just went for it.
I went very smooth on the side.
This podcast not brought to you by LaCroix.
No, and I am going to number 2. No, just kidding. But yeah, no, what we had here essentially is the presence of their hardware and other manufacturers.
Yeah.
And you need to realize that they make great panels. A lot of people don't realize the sensors, the panels that we have on our devices, and that's really where you're noticing a lot of the increase. You know,
totally.
Are they being, is there other manufacturers on the market that are basically, starting to gain market share? Yes. It's an evolution. Every year, every once in a while, when you don't change, your design, you're going to have some companies that are going to creep up a little bit, and then, they'll have their own, they'll carve up their own market. I think Huawei is doing great.
So this is the frustrating aspect of focusing in or overly focusing in on one ill-defined metric.
Yeah.
Market share is a very fluid way to describe the smartphone ecosystem and looking at the worldwide numbers of sales. So it can totally be true, because I think Samsung sales are still growing. Like they're facing some of the high-end plateau that Apple has faced, but we're still seeing an uptrend. We're not seeing a downtrend. So it can still be completely true that Samsung sales have never been stronger, that they're still building their user base.
Yeah.
Their actual user base is still growing. But in facing more competition from Chinese manufacturers, emerging LTE markets around the world, that high-end premium and even their mid-range options are going to face a wallop of competition from Huawei, Oppo, and Xiaomi.
Oh no, definitely, yeah. They, a lot of they release so many devices every year. Most people don't talk too much about them, but yeah, they're A-line devices. I mean, when you go to CES, you see all of their devices, and you see the main top end, the S's, and then the Note line, but. That's what it is. Yeah. I mean, there's more options. And I think that's what's going to be within 18. We're going to see a lot more resurgence, or not resurgence, but like a flurry of new manufacturers coming into the market with great hardware, comparable prices. I mean, may not have the same, everything with the kitchen sink kind of thing. But you'll see some good competition. I think that'll be really good. I'm hoping that'll bring a new market into that middle ground. Because we have the budget devices that are like sub $500 price point right now.
I mean, how crazy is that discussion right now?
Yeah, and then now he's like, boy, I'm like $1,000.
$500 to $600 is now the mid range. The lobster, it wasn't even a lobster pot effect. It's 2 years where we flipped the switch on. Well, now a top end phone is $1,000.
Yeah, but this discussion we weren't even talking this way at the beginning of the year, which is the weird part about it. This is still the same year. At the beginning of 17,
we had some inkling that Apple was going to do something big. It was always on the radar, but I was like, oh, that's on the horizon, and then it snuck up on us
and then
really
it was there
quickly
before you knew it. And the iPhone 10 was released, and nobody was surprised that it was $1,000. But the reality is, you'd expect Apple to do that, but then you see the Note come in at $950. I'm like, whoa, and then. So with tax, both of these in the U.S., some of you guys that are not in the U.S. may not realize, but $1,000 isn't just $1,000. It's like $1,100 after you factor in tax.
Yeah.
And even with the Note is over $1,000 when you factor that in. And Unless you have some kind of subsidy with your carrier, which not that many carriers.
Actually, they're not really doing now. Most carriers are doing 0 interest loans, so you're still gonna pay.
Yeah, you're still paying
the full price of that phone. They're just gonna carve it up for you and not charge you interest.
Yeah,
so you're still gonna pay $1,000.
That 500, 550 to 600 to 1,000, that became an open market now.
Yeah,
there is a gap now that's called. I think that will be what it's like. Maybe not flagship, but like a premium mid-range.
I'm still gonna do this, and it's gonna piss off so many people that watch our videos. But I look at the market and I say, you have a reasonable smartphone experience from around $150 for his entry level now.
Yeah.
And the high-end player, the base model version of the top end phone is $1,000.
Yeah.
In between $150 and $1,000 is somewhere around that $500 to $600 tier. Exactly. That's the mid-range.
Yeah, Razor's like about 700. And
so it's now when we get to like $700-800, we are cresting into flagship territory or the high-end market.
Exactly.
And at that like $300 to $400, we're in that blurred line between just entry-level fare and the beginnings of what could be called your mid-range.
Mid-range, or
yeah. But at 500, you're smack dab in the middle.
Like, it'll be interesting to see what Samsung does with the S9. The price point, because if they're bringing the features that you had on the Note 8 that were justified to basically get you into that 900 something, we may be seeing.
And against Apple, you can't undercut your price too much, because then psychologically people are going to look at that and go, oh well, it's not as good.
Yeah.
So because Apple's made this play to $1,000, and because the Note was already priced above 900, I really don't see where you can launch a Galaxy S8, the little S8. Below maybe 750.
Yeah.
Like there's no way you can make that pricing argument, because then people are going to look, well, the iPhone's $1,000, so it's $300 more better than a Galaxy S9, which is so frustrating that that's kind of the emotional impact of consumerism on our tech space. But I really think that I'll be surprised if the Galaxy S9, the smaller Galaxy S9, launches significantly below $799.
Me too. No, definitely. Especially in the US, because they're going to also release it with 64 gigs of internal storage. You're going to be, I think we are moving forward, and hopefully we'll see the 845, but we'll see.
I'd be surprised if I feel like the same thing will probably happen this year as what happened with the 835, where Samsung sort of sucks most of the wind out of the market for the early batches of that chipset.
That's pretty much what they did. Yeah. But everybody else ended up getting the 835 anyways later.
Well, but again, Samsung had that being first for a good chunk of time.
Yeah.
Because their only other competition was the G6 with the 821.
So that was the thing. Yeah. But the G series is always a year behind. So you never expect the G series to be able to just come in there. The last few, the G5 and the G6 both came with last year's CPUs.
Did the G5? The G5 was an 820.
It was the 821 came in on the V20. So the
V20 was an 820 too.
It was 821.
Yeah, so like the G6 was the first one that actually interrupted that. So the G5 launched a little bit after the S, but it was also an 820.
I'll circle
because
back
before that,
that.
I mean, every manufacturer was trying to get
the 830, the next
as far away from the 810 as they could. And so
that's right. Yeah, that's right. The 810 was the one people wanted to run away from.
And so LG made the play on the G5. It was just they sacrificed build quality for modularity
and backs and all.
I know a lot of people are talking boot loops on V10s and G4s. The LG that gave me the most problems was the G5. I went through 3 of them, and the one that I had that worked for the wrap up on our review now doesn't work. So I've gone through 3, and I have 3 bricks now in G5 land, and
they're modular. But they're modular, man.
And none of the friends' modules worked in the United States.
The camera,
we've got our B&O DAC, but not for you.
No, not for you. Not in the US. No great audio for you.
I literally couldn't be happier with my V10 right now, but it's like I've got to call them out. I got to call LG out on you've got to work on that.
Oh, man.
You've got to work on your distribution and especially your marketing.
They don't even include headphones anymore or earbuds in the actual box.
No.
Last year they gave you at least
I think a couple markets still got.
Yes, not in the US.
But not in the US.
Yeah, I was specifically calling you. I know at least South America did receive them. I put out a video, and that was like my one gripe, because we got B&O headphones last year.
Yeah.
And this year, nothing. They're like, well, I got headphones too. I'm like, serious? The US is the one that you don't give it to? Guess we don't like music or something.
I don't get it. Especially when one of the biggest selling points that you can really market. It's so rare that you have a phone where you can point to a feature which is objectively the best.
Yeah.
And LG has one feature that is objectively better than any other manufacturer on the market.
The V series, yep.
And they're not advertising it. And now they don't even include something in the hardware in the box to take advantage of it.
They include the DAC. They didn't.
No, but I mean, like, you want to plug, you want to open the phone. It's that new box. You know, plug something in. You want to. I've got to find some earbuds.
Got to go find my B&O headphones from last week. But yeah, no, I hope definitely that we'll see some new surprises. It's going to be obviously an incremental upgrade.
Yeah.
But the 845 would be nice just to see that. And I know you guys did some coverage on that as well with the summit over.
Yeah, Jaime made the trek out to. Oh, poor guy had to spend a week in Maui.
I went to London. I was freezing. I was freezing.
We're PG-13.
I was taking pictures and I was cold. And I see Jaime posting pictures with the beach. I'm like, oh, come on, Jaime.
You jerk. Oh, my Pixel 2 camera takes amazing sunset photos with its HDR plus mode.
I agree that it does.
Feet in the warm sand. Oh, this is the warm Pacific Ocean waters.
It was nice. Although I have to feel for them. It was very windy.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
No, definitely. I love Hawaii. Maui's my favorite, but definitely. The 845 looks really
This almost
promising.
became a travel podcast here.
It is a travel podcast, guys.
Let me tell you about Porta Vallarta.
Let me tell you about London. No, in December. No, it's a beautiful place. I lucked out. I didn't actually make it there when there was snow.
Right.
It stopped snowing a few days before I got in there, and after I left, it snowed.
You brought a little California with you.
I brought some little bit of heat, and
a little
for
sunshine.
them, they were like looking at me, like, "What are you freezing for?" I said, I'm from Southern California. 85 degrees out right now, guys. I'm actually overdressed for the weather.
Right.
So yeah, it's December.
It's beginning to look a lot like September. So Galaxy S9 rumors. I hope that these are on point. These are the kinds of changes that I think make sense for the Galaxy S series.
Yeah.
And I think they fulfill a lot of the evolutionary issues I've had since the S6.
Okay.
So S7, I think, was probably the perfect 16:9 smartphone.
Yeah.
I still don't like glass back devices. So I'm pretty much, I just have to give up on that fight because I don't think any other manufacturers are really going to come back.
I think we're going to see quite a few of those, especially with wireless charging. If you're going to try to bring that in.
Well, because I was like, you could make Kevlar or go back to leather or something interesting and call it a premium product.
See, now you brought the G4 back into my mind.
Right?
Yeah.
Or
the G4 was nice.
Moto X, Moto X2, Moto Maker.
Yeah.
I mean,
customize.
These people have heard me prattle on way too much about my Captain America Moto X2 over there. But anyway, these types of things finally, I think, fulfilling all of the little issues in the final design language for that phone. We have a problem in Samsung land, though, that I think Apple users can commiserate with in very expensive premium products, top of the market. Can we still count on consumers following Samsung? Because I think manufacturers are hoping that a significant chunk of their user base are going to follow yearly. We know that the average amount of time that someone holds onto their smartphone is now past 2 years, which means there are a significant chunk of people who are holding onto their phones probably out to 3 years now.
Yeah.
That's Galaxy S6 territory.
Yeah.
So do we think that those people are looking at the S9 the same way that iPhone 6 users might be looking at an iPhone 8?
That could be the pretend. That could be the reality. And actually, it's weird that you brought it up because at one point, I changed my devices a little bit more frequently. So it's
just a little bit
more frequently. So when I talk to people in stores and I talk to people and I say, like, I switched from a Samsung to an LG to a Huawei to and they're like, well,
you even spent some time with the Razer phone.
I used the Razer phone, which is an amazing phone. You're right. People are carrying their phones a lot longer. I do see a walk around and I see S7s or even S5s. I know a person.
I was on set with a sound guy. He had an iPhone 5S and he's like, I'm not getting rid of it.
Yeah. There's really not much.
It's crazy.
We're hitting that point with the hardware that the hardware realistically is just still good.
Yeah.
There's no reason that the Snapdragon 8, even though it's warm, I mean, there's nothing, it'll still keep up with most of the things that you're going to do. It may not have the right, the sensor, the camera, the audio.
I still revisit my V10. Yeah.
So the V10 is, I think it's a point in time that a lot of us kind of need to appreciate. It's the beginning of a line for LG that brought in durability, audio quality, and just a great combo. And they kept on it and they're moving forward. It's not, I mean, we varied a little bit on the 20 and the 30, but
varied a lot.
A lot. When I meant a little, I meant a lot. But I think, this will be basically the point where people want to upgrade. They want to.
Yeah.
It's a big enough of an upgrade from what you have. You know, you're getting that. You know, the much different display. And if you're from the S5 going in, you're getting glass first time. You're getting a really good battery. In the S6 and the S6 Plus, I think they had some concerns with battery performance.
Well, they went thin over battery capacity.
And then as time goes on, the batteries kept getting smaller, but they're getting better processors now, better operating system to give you longer battery life. So it would be good. Hopefully people can, you know, be loyal to a brand, loyal to a brand. But it's a big jump, because if they remember what they paid for the S5, and then they're like, what?
Yeah.
That upgrade is not the same in like multiple layer, you know, so.
Well, and I know from Samsung's perspective, I'm sure if they were looking at like S5 users, they would have hoped like, okay, well, S7 would have been their upgrade.
Yeah.
But that's still, it doesn't quite gel. Like, you do the S5 to S7 to S9 jump, or like my mom's still on her S5. The screen is starting to flicker. Like the phone is starting to die. She doesn't want to get rid of it. The idea of a phone upgrade is just stress. Like it's just, she's.
Well, it also goes back to data transfer. A lot of people are concerned with the amount of data they have on their phones.
Yeah.
When you carry it for a while, for about a year and a half, their concern is like, how do I transfer it? They're not really familiar now that transferring data from a Samsung to a Samsung is super easy.
Oh yeah.
Extremely.
But you don't know that until you take the plunge.
Exactly.
It's really hard to get a feel for that. Yeah.
It's not one of the things a lot of people kind of cover it. I was talking to a friend of mine that had an S5.
Like I can't do a whole video on that. So it was a part of my video coverage for the Note 8, where for the first time, I didn't set it up fresh. Like I actually did one of these data transfers.
Exactly.
Literally the very first time I've really ever played with that. Because anytime I've tried, I want it clean. I want it new. I want it like taking out of the box.
You want to be able to see the horsepower, the true horsepower, without any of the bug.
But then also realizing like so many of the people watching aren't going to be first-time smartphone buyers. They're not going to. They're going to want to just transfer over as quickly. So I finally took the plunge. But your point about price is actually legit too, because I think one of the things that is scaring my mom off, I mean, using her as a specific example, is she got her S5 towards the end of the first year of the S5's life, got it on a great deal because it wasn't as popular a Samsung phone as previous ones. And it had things that she cared about, like the more grippy, durable backplate, the water resistance, even though it had a flap, it was still a first like it's a true foray into water resistance for a flagship. And then she picks up an S7, an S8, and it's curvy, slippery glass. It feels less durable. It feels more brittle.
It feels like it'll break if it hits the ground for 2 seconds. Yeah.
And so she was really interested in maybe going S8 active.
That was
until she saw that it was going to be a $900 price tag. And then it was like, well, I'm just going to stick with my S5. And you're like, well, unfortunately, the more you wait, the more expensive your options are going to get.
The less updates you're going to be getting, the more vulnerable you're going to be running your device. Those are the things that people keep in mind.
Yeah.
You can keep your device for a certain amount of time, but once you start getting updates, security updates, patches, and stuff like that, those are the things you want to keep in mind. There's a security factor that is. You put a lot of your personal information there. So you keeping it up to date, keeping it with at least something that's reasonable within the last 2 years, keeping it within the update cycle that most manufacturers are sticking to, I think is a benefit to you as a person. So I think,
but she's weighing the benefit against what activity she does put on and a $900 price tag for her to have that brand.
Exactly.
Again. And so, you know, they recently did a trip to the UK, and I sent her with a 6X. Unlocked because we were having some issues with her carrier, just making sure she could do like a local SIM if she wanted to. She didn't have any problems. The Honor 6X was a heady competitor for her S5.
The 6X is an amazing phone for the price point and what it offers.
Right?
Exactly. It covers the basics.
She was way less concerned if that phone got broke because she knew like how much it cost, and it didn't actually cost me anything because it was a review phone. But this is also one of those things we're looking at, sort of the impact on the market and what these companies are doing to try and, I think, keep the emotions running high, the wow factor running high, at a time where I feel like consumers are kind of cooling off. I don't feel like, you know, we're quite there yet. We've had the conversation before over dinner, like the post smartphone world, like what comes next. And we're not there yet, but we're really stinking close. And I think one of the things that's a difficult challenge for companies trying to talk directly to their customers, you can't keep selling this wow factor when we're all really well established smartphone consumers.
Exactly.
These are commodities now. And so how do you command a premium when there isn't the same kind of lifestyle argument? It's not exclusive.
Exactly.
Everyone has one. Most people are probably looking at a top tier option or solution and then just lobster potting how much they pay per month to lease it, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how do you make someone excited? You know, like the S9 isn't gonna make people excited. Whereas even the S8, people looked at it and like, wow, it's really clean. But then you had a bunch of people on S7 edges going, nah, I'm good.
Exactly, because they had that. That's all. The only big factor they changed on the S8 over from last year is they did the curved display. They no longer have the flat display and the curved version of it. You had that on every device, and I think that was a good move for them. But that was, yeah, that's kind of about it. If they move the fingerprint sensor from the back to the middle, people will be excited about that. But are they going to be like, well, is it worth that extra selling my phone? That's probably going to be.
And you know, there's going to be an S7 Edge guy going, yeah, my fingerprint sensor is still on the front. I'm good.
So
why do I need an S9?
Why would I need to? So I think the S7 is still a good. That's one of those. The camera sensor hasn't really changed much for them. That's the other thing. They haven't really changed this dramatic thing.
Right.
They may have gone down in the aperture, maybe to f1.7, f4.6. I think f4.7 for Samsung.
S7 was 1.7 also.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is when they went down, when they went with that 12 megapixel sensor on the back, they haven't really gone and said, oh my God, this is a 16. They stopped playing that game.
Yeah.
They focused it there. And then now they brought the dual sensors in the back. So again, they're banking on what works. They're reading their metrics. They're working their numbers. They know what works. They know what people want. But that wow factor, I know. What is going to be that next wow? You know, is it going to be that dual display phone, or is it going to be that phone that does, orders something for you without you even asking?
Well, and to a point where someone might take a risk on straying from the manufacturer that they know.
Yeah.
So like I'm a little nervous about my mom leaving the Samsung ecosystem. Like I'm not going to recommend an LG for my mom. She's so well acquainted with what the S5 can do in the Samsung apps.
Exactly.
But by the time she upgrades, Samsung software is not going to resemble that at all. So already,
changing. That's true. Samsung does that every
year. They change so many things just for the sake of changing things, and they don't bring those changes to older devices. Nope. So there's really no point for her to have that kind of brand loyalty. Like I could say, well, like maybe it is time to look, or maybe you do want to go to an iPhone if you're FaceTiming with grandma a lot. Maybe this is a solution that you want to take a look at because you're gonna have to relearn everything anyway.
It is. That's the one thing that iPhone has had, and that was. It was a good and bad thing on the iPhone 10 that I found that even though they did some innovation with the movement and the gestures, but the UI still looked the same. We're still looking at the same grid. We're still looking at the same things. We didn't get that much different there. But you're right. Going from an S5 to a Note 8 or an S8 Plus or even an S8, it's a different device.
Yeah,
it is different. There's some resemblance in the background but it's a different device.
Very little that you can tie the two together.
And the S9 will probably have a new version of Samsung. What is it called? They don't call it TouchWiz anymore.
The Samsung Experience,
the UI, the UX. So
it's like Apple Watch Edition.
It's something that they keep wanting to fine tune and make less jittery, take out some things and fine tune. I think it's been always a fine tuning process, but they need to bring it back. They need to bring it back to the older devices. They need to give access to people to say, look, we care about you. This isn't that hard for us to bring in a launcher from one device to another.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but for me, all devices look pretty much the same.
Yeah, we're getting to that point where I'm kind of phone blind.
Yeah, this entire year could be could be basically just the subtitle: 835, 4 gigs to 8 gigs of RAM,
and tall screens.
Name your device. That's any flagship that pretty much answers all of those. So we're getting there. So we need to see something new. We need to see something different. And you're right. Razer for me was a breath of fresh air.
Right.
In the midst of all of these 18:9 aspect ratios and all of those things, 120 hertz, 8 gigs of RAM, beautiful sound.
Yeah.
Massive speakers in the front.
Yeah.
So that was to me a wow factor. When I held that phone, I was like, wow. But again, we have a little bit more access to things to be able to play around. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at all of these things, you're looking at numbers, the price factor is going to be a big thing. I think that's what it is. People have to have a way of being able to kind of gauge and
not feel like it's a compromise.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So like my dad has, this is so funny. Like they bought phones in the same era and they're still holding on to them. My dad has a Galaxy, what is it? It's the mini Note 4, the Galaxy Alpha. Do you remember? It was the super skinny one that had the metal edges and then the rubbery backplate, just like the Note 4.
Yeah, man, that was.
And he wanted a little phone, and you're like, that was for that year the best small form factor Android device. But again, his is starting to go to, he's got a cracked screen, like they're kind of talking. He's actually looking at going BlackBerry. I don't know that he's going to go key one, but I think he's waiting to see if he can keep his phone running long enough to see. He doesn't want to go first gen. He wants to see what they follow up with.
Definitely. And you have Android, so the ecosystem isn't that different.
So 2017, I think, started us off on a conversation of like, it's okay to maybe specialize. Maybe you don't need to try and fight Apple and Samsung with the best all-rounder, soft around the edges, does everything generally good, but doesn't excel in any one area phone. And Key One, I think, is emblematic of one of the best examples of that. I think the Razr becomes another great talking point on we are willing to make compromises in some areas so that we can focus on making sure that this is the best that it possibly can be.
Exactly.
Key One, we're not going to try and impress you with the best multimedia device of all time.
We're going to see,
but we're going to give you 2.5 days of legitimately 2.5 days of battery life and the best communication features that we can pack into a phone today.
And we're going to see a lot more of those.
I'm really hoping that that's maybe how we can diversify the conversation a bit. I think that works to Samsung's detriment, because I still think that Samsung is most successful when they have a target in mind for their demographic. My favorite phone of theirs this year was the Active. They knew exactly who that phone was for. The features were built specifically for that phone. And if you liked Samsung's aesthetic, why not go with the Samsung that also has the biggest battery?
I was going to say, it's the only one that has the biggest battery. It has a bigger battery than even the Note 8, which is like, wow.
That's huge.
Exactly.
With the smaller screen.
Exactly.
So it's the best of both worlds. You've got the more rugged device. You don't have to slap a case on it. You've got all of the same features that you like.
Yeah, the UI, exactly.
And you can run that phone a lot longer. You know,
and the good
supposedly people care about those things until
you can get it on more than one carrier this year too. That was the first year, 2017. We finally saw that exclusivity die, and we finally are able to pick it up on T-Mobile, which is a big thing for a lot of people because you at least now have that option. The only gripe that I always had with it is they always released it somewhere in the middle of the year after so many people have invested into the S8.
Yeah.
So unless you started with an Active from before, it's hard for you to justify the Active. It's that weird timing of the year, right?
I really think like the timing on that also worked against them because they were looking at how they could stray from AT&T exclusivity.
Yeah.
So AT&T didn't make any noise, and we were expecting that AT&T push alongside Samsung, and then it never came, and they just sort of one day went, oh, here it is.
Yeah, here's
And you're like, okay, well, that kind of shot them in the foot, but I'm hoping that means that for next year, it's part of like a 3-prong. You've got like your S9. The S9 Active splits the time between the S and the Note. And then we have like a 3-tier strategy coming from Samsung.
They like to time it for the summer. I feel like they want to.
It's a perfect time.
It's a perfect time for the summer because that's when you want to have like super rugged phone where you're going to the beach, you're going outdoors, your phone drops. You don't want to worry about that. You want to be able to move forward and not have to worry about getting a case, which is the first thing you have to do when you buy an S9, right?
All right. I mean, like, I'm not going to tell people not to buy the iPhone 10. But you absolutely should not buy the iPhone 10 unless you're getting a case, a screen, some kind of screen protection and Apple Care. So your $1,000 phone is really
Apple Care
a $1,400 phone.
That screen replacement will cost you north of $400.
The back glass costs you $400.
The back.
That's ridiculous. Okay, we got a couple comments here on Twitter. This is using the PN Weekly hashtag from Peter Hayton. There are more options with Samsung, but oh wait, I'm sorry, I've got his tweets reversed. I do believe there is potential for Bixby, especially with the deep app integration. That's an excellent point. The issue is the availability and continuity between devices. I think if Bixby were made more widely available and Samsung could properly commit, then it would compete with Google Assistant. There are more options with Samsung, but I'm also happy that they have stopped releasing so many phones in our market, where they used to release a phone because it's Tuesday, and this made it really difficult for a purchasing decision to be made. I know they still have Galaxy A series and other sort of lower end and mid-range devices. I'm kind of surprised they didn't piggyback on the Apple strategy of you could buy last year's phone for cheaper.
Yeah, that would have been.
They kind of walked away from that. I there's a part of me that kind of likes that brand cohesion of the 1-year-old phone is still plenty good, so let's use that as our mid-ranger.
Yeah, no, why not? Because Apple always does a really good job about the fact that they don't ignore their history. They reduce it. They'll knock off $100, and then people were like, "Yeah, nothing's wrong with the iPhone 7 Plus. It looks exactly the same, just doesn't have wireless charging." I'm like, okay, great. The camera is pretty decent.
Cool. Now, to Apple's detriment this year, they also have they're still selling the SE, the 6S, the 7, the 8, and the 10. So you've got 2, 6. You've got 8 active iPhones that consumers can shop between the different screen sizes. That I think is probably a mistake.
It's gonna be something. Yeah, no. I think Bixby coming to other devices, we're gonna face similar issues the way Alexa had to face getting out, because of that deep integration of the assistant built into your Android device. That the way Bixby is built into your Samsung device, and they had to put that button there. Otherwise, you wouldn't really know how to initiate it, because voice initiation only worked on Samsung. But when you bring it to another ecosystem where it's not baked into the OS, you're going to have to push a button. And I think that will be, that's where the smart speaker kind of makes sense, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
But I think if they can do automation on the fly with it, beat the other guy's automation process at their game, and then jump the gun, because they already have smart things. Smart things is actually one of the best hubs that you can get on the market right now. It's comparably priced, and it has a lot of support for mini technology. And he also supports Z-Wave technology, which is something, I don't know if you've used some of those. That's one of the first things you started getting when you got into automation. You have a big ecosystem of well-established people, like maybe use the Vera Home or some of the older, and they can upgrade to a new smart things, and then the speaker can be your gateway,
your hub for that. I mean, I just feel like, you know, your speaker could also be that for a Google Assistant for an Echo. But
it is there now. But
it's the potential, whether or not Samsung's timing on the market makes sense. Then I also have this tweet from Andrew Wallace, PN Weekly. My dad literally buys replacement HTC One M8s to cannibalize parts when he has one and he's using it and it dies. I don't know how we're going to get him to upgrade. And again, like, I'm kind of in the same boat with my mom. Like, if you like the phone, keep getting the same phone, and you're watching it just get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every time. So you actually have to get going here pretty soon, so I want to wrap us up talking a little about net neutrality. We didn't want to make this the main focus of the podcast, because we've obviously spent a lot of time, I think, on our various social media, blogging, writing, talking about,
and it was a big subject all around. Definitely.
And so the vote was from the time of this recording, the vote passed yesterday. The FCC, in a 3-2 vote on party lines, the conservatives outnumber because we have a conservative president, voted to repeal Title II regulation of the internet. And obviously there was the flurry of activity, a lot of like dank memes posted on Reddit, about how much Ajit Pai, the current chairman, is obnoxious and has a punchable face. I think what gets lost in that initial fervor is, one, so this is policy. This policy has been voted on. We should expect that there should be a legal fight happening. Do you think that if lawsuits hit, that they'll be able to enact a stay so that Title II regulation is kept while
there's legal proceedings?
The legal proceedings while this is being fought in the courts.
Put a pause. Definitely, we've seen the legal system being able to actually put a lot of halts on policies and things within the government that have been issued. It literally means that we, as a user, or us, everybody that is concerned about this, needs to voice their opinion. It's not, we didn't lose the race. It's not like you just crossed the line and that's it. It's all over. You need to still be able to bring up the subject and understand what's going on, what needs to, some of the things that we've been dealing with for so many years. I mean, just the fact of the matter is this was there to help us get a fair experience, so that we don't have this where, my YouTube keeps getting really bogged down every time on AT&T during the middle of the day because I can't do anything.
It's funny how, like, when I canceled my expanded TV package with Spectrum, that my Netflix doesn't stream as well, even though my internet download speeds have actually gone up.
It's total coincidence. It's total coincidence.
There's no, I mean, it's correlation. It's not causation.
No. So, but those are the things that we need to keep in mind. The reality is, we depend. The internet is no longer this thing that we like to have access to. We depend on it on a daily basis. This is things using it.
It's becoming a resource like water or power.
Exactly. We have the smartphone is no longer this luxury thing, or do we want to get a phone with a display? It's pretty much what we most look at. I mean, the feature phone or flip phone is no longer a phone. It's like, wow, that you still have those.
You make a legitimate argument that you could leave the house without your wallet or keys, but you might not be able to leave the house without your smartphone.
Exactly. I will go home. I've done it in the past where I've left. I forgot my wallet. I went over to my brother's house. We had breakfast and we were kicking it. And on the way back, I forgot, and my car was running out of gas. I didn't panic. I'm like, I have my phone. And at the time I had my Note 8. I went inside, paid with my with Samsung Pay, got gas, and went home. I didn't care about it. And the reality is, it's a resource. And what they're doing right now is they're saying is that we don't want to be able to, manage it like a resource. They're thinking, okay, this isn't it. No, but it is a utility.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, and I think they're blurring the line. I've mentioned this before too, the difference between a telecommunication service and an information service.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because Time Warner has an investment in content doesn't mean that the pipe that gets you onto the internet is also an information service. That's like the same as having a phone,
yeah,
or having running water or electricity at this point. They have to realize, the access.
This is the access. This is the way you get to all of those things. And what they did this week, or the decision that went through, which is really kind of gets to me at the core, is they didn't listen to the users.
No.
They disregarded us.
In fact, it wasn't even that they disregarded us. It's we can find videos of their actual deliberation where they're laughing at the comments that they got received from the FCC website. And then we had GadgetGuy's ridiculous video, things you can still do on the internet. I still bought a burrito on the internet. And you're like, it's rage inducing, but I feel it's with purpose, because I feel if we're just directing our ire at how much he's obnoxious, then we're not actually being productive in how we can fix the problem.
Exactly.
And so focusing on Chairman Pai is a waste of energy, because he has obvious contempt and disdain for the actual citizenship that are trying to join the conversation in earnest. He is not an agent of actual functioning government. He is occupying a position to kind of prove the hypothesis that government can't work. Right.
It's something that, the playground was not a fair playground yesterday. I mean, you basically saw the train wreck, and you're just watching it for the train wreck.
As opposed to Chairman Wheeler. We had the expectation that Tom Wheeler was going to kill for the telecommunications industry, because he came out of telecoms. Exactly. And instead, what we got was a fairly well-reasoned individual who, I didn't agree with all of his policy, but when it came to things like basic consumer protections, we were in agreement on a lot of how he enacted Title II, especially how he fought for Title II. So I think moving forward, what do you think are some of the outcomes that people can turn to, like actually investing energy in some kind of positive outcome? I know we need to have this catharsis where we stomp our feet and we yell and we shout and we make our tasty memes about how much GadgetGuy sucks.
Yeah.
But once we get through this sort of weekend,
it'll blow over. Something else will come up, and then,
and we know that there's going to be other news. It's going to be crazy out of politics. It's going to eclipse this for the general populace out there. This is what keeps happening to the net neutrality debate. Is we know that the tax bill is going to occupy the media. We know healthcare is going to occupy media. Those are like top tier
they're together
situations. But net neutrality deserves to be on the list of things people pay attention to. What do you think are some of the things that people can invest their energy in for hopefully a more positive outcome?
I think to just be more mindful of what things are going on, understanding what's going on with the internet, with the services that you're going. If you see concerns, you see issues with providers, you see, we start seeing that whole, certain packages for certain speeds,
right?
And these things where they're basically flat out. And one comment that kind of got me yesterday during when they made their announcement is, the fact of the matter is they can get away with it mostly now by just changing their terms of agreement.
Yeah.
It's totally legal, because if they say this is what we're offering, then they're sticking to what they're saying. So there's no problem there.
And as long as they publicly disclose it, then the only agency that can fight for consumer protections is the FTC,
which is totally separate. And not only that,
and all they need to do is disclose, we are going to throttle this service. That's part of their terms of service.
It's like saying unlimited 4G internet, but then in the fine print, after 4 gigs or 5 to 50 gigs.
And that's totally legal, and it's totally acceptable from the purview of the FTC, because the FTC can't set policy. They can only respond to those kinds of abuses. So if there's no abuse, there's no problem.
Be the big thing. The big response is that it's no longer where we can actually. It now needs a bigger group of people to be really upset about something, and something to be so bad for us to be able to go in and try to change it. This was such a backward step process that they took us here, that it took a lot of work to get us to where we were, and then we just seriously just threw it out the door.
I know we keep bringing this up in very limited segments, but the open internet order was a fight in the courts, I think, for over a decade.
Yeah.
And so now that we've taken this huge step backwards, we could be looking at another multi-year process
before we can even try to find something comparable to what we had.
So I'm hoping that some good legal minds will be able to convince a judge that this order needs to be stayed until it has its day in court.
Exactly.
And I'm not confident in this current administration, especially at the circuit court level.
It's a little bit harder because Yeah, you need to realize that, yeah, there's a good part of the population that won't even notice it till it's too late.
Right.
By the time they realize what has been done, because it'll start coming out small amounts. It's not going to come out first like next Monday. We're like, congratulations, your packages have been changed. Now you have the base tier. You'd like to add these
Although,
things.
you know, you look at people in Xfinity markets, you know, you're already dealing with data caps.
Those, oh man.
You know, like a streaming package, or you know what? We'll just have a special Xbox plugin. And now, like, this traffic isn't going to count against your data cap. So why stream Netflix when you can use your Xfinity?
And it's one of those things
for free.
You need to keep the subject going. I think that's the main goal. I think if we keep talking about it, realize what's going on, and, you know, bring it up in those town hall meetings, bring it up to your congressman, bring it up to people that you work with.
Yeah.
Because those are the people that need to realize when, you know, when he sits on the board and says, I ordered a burrito on my phone from last week, and nobody kind of looked at him like, so what? You
That's the dumbest thing I think anyone's ever said.
Yeah, you ordered the burrito. What?
That's not what we're worried about. Is your burrito consumption, Mr. Reese's Muggo coffee?
And then stating that all of his sources were ISPs. I'm like, come on. And I talked to the little ISP in little town, and I'm like, okay, you're right. But I'm with you. But you're talking to the companies that do want to be. You want to be able to upsell you on market on packages. Talk to the consumers, people that use the internet, the people that don't want to have or that deal with YouTube, spinning wheel of death, Netflix not loading correctly. Those are the people that get our.
Now, do you think that some of these state initiatives might have some teeth? Like we saw the Washington state governor saying that they were going to try and enact a local version of net neutrality. State senator, I think it's Chris Weiner, is talking about trying to pass a bill in California.
That would be, so there's going to be some big concerns there, because you have to keep in mind of how that bill gets passed. Now, it depends on where you are in the States, whoever owns the poles or the landlines. Or
that's a big problem for a lot of communities.
It's the infrastructure that a lot of us don't look at. You don't see, obviously, the tower, but those towers are owned by companies. AT&T, T-Mobile, and so on share towers. Verizon, all of those carriers. They sometimes, if they don't own it, they're leasing it from other companies, and they're paying a fee. And if they do own it, obviously they're getting payment from other companies to use.
And the state government,
exactly. So when we see things like that done at the state level, we'll see some benefit from it. It's not going to have the same impact as the big guys, because at the end of the day, it's a small market for the big company. You know, Verizon's not just in California.
Even Californians have to do business with entities outside of our state.
Exactly.
So interconnect fees still
exist. So it's something that we need to kind of, if that happens, and I think we start being able to kind of like to move forwards toward it, it'll be beneficial for us. But at the end of the day, I think there has to be a solution where we get back to something similar. It may not be the same.
A global,
exactly.
Or not, I mean, a nationwide
agreement of
say
how
this is at least the bare minimum.
This is, exactly. And, you know, I'm not going to try to knock on it, but T-Mobile has something very similar that they do, right? If you're using their binge on demand or all of that, you know, all of that is included, doesn't count against your data, but you're capped to a certain speed. But that's the standard. You know what you're going into when you turn binge on.
And there's disclosure.
Yeah, it is right there. But it's not a bad experience. We are talking about literally not loading, I mean, getting bad quality pictures and not enjoying a service.
Or intercepting traffic.
Exactly.
Like what we've seen with Comcast.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about how you need to buy a new modem, even though you don't, because you were able to do this just fine, but it's mandatory. And we're going to intercept your web traffic and serve you this ad.
So it's one of those things. Yeah. So you need to keep it open.
I think this is now especially the time where continuing to join the conversation, continuing to reach out to especially local and state officials
have to bring it up.
Is mandatory, because we need to set a consistent precedent that this is something that people care about. As soon as you let the pressure off, they can go, oh, see, no one cares anymore. I guess it was fine. And then they can go on with whatever other policy, policy that they want to enact. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us, especially because I want to, we ran a lot longer than I thought, because like having these conversations in person, we don't get to do this as often.
Meet up again. Yeah, no, definitely.
So before we make the jump, where can people find the content you're producing? What are some projects that you're going to be working on? I know we're also wrapping up the year too.
Exactly. So there's going to be a wrap up going on. I'm actually getting pretty ready to go to CES. I'm pretty excited. I know it's
doing all my pre-pro too. Yeah.
So I'm starting to kind of like in my mind trying to figure out what I need to do for CES. Online, I'm basically on YouTube. It's TK Bay, just TKBAY, and then on Twitter, TKDSL8655. You can also see some of my content also on XDA Developers, or if you're familiar with the show or the actual website, an amazing Android development site. So definitely.
That's where I get all my software stuff is XDA.
If you want to extend the life of any device.
Project Treble.
Yes. Oh man.
Project Treble.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, no, I'm around, and hopefully we'll release some information below the video if you guys want to reach out and ask questions or talk.
Great. All right, guys, there you have it. Another episode of the Pocketnow Weekly has come and gone. This show is over, but the conversation continues on Twitter. Definitely give TK a follow TK DSL 8655
on Twitter,
and I'm humbly at SomeGadgetGuy. Pocketnow is around the web on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, and our home site, pocketnow.com. Spanish speakers, check out es.pocketnow.com. And shows like this cannot exist without your support. Sharing the weekly with your friends who love mobile technology, dropping reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever else you can review a podcast. And once again, we want to thank this week's sponsor. Definitely check out that #1 New York Times bestseller author, the Demon Circle book. Let me just pull it up. I've already forgotten his website and I didn't have my show notes up here. JamesRollins.com. He's helping us keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab, but ultimately there wouldn't be a show if it weren't for our listeners and subscribers who have kept us on the air since 2012. The Pocketnow Weekly will be back next week with all kinds of delicious technology goodness. So make sure you tune back in.
See you guys.